Listen, my name is Charles Allen. I'm so excited to be here with you for the launch of the campaign Taking Back Our Power. So I want to get you riled up. So one more time, make some noise! I think you can do a lot better than that. Stand up on your feet and make some noise! Come on, 1, 2, everybody, make some noise! All right, when I say whose power, you say our power. Whose power? Whose power? Whose power? Whose power? When I say whose power, you say our power. Whose power? Louder. Whose power? Whose power? Whose power? We. When I say we, you say we, all right? We are taking back our power. We are taking back our power. Say, we are taking back our power. We're 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 taking back our power. Come on. We're taking back our power. We're taking back our power. Can't hear you. Hey. We're taking. Yeah, we're taking our power. We're taking our power. We're taking back 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 our power. Whose power? Whose power? Whose power? Whose power? Whose house? Y'all knew that. Y'all knew that, huh? Listen, I have the honor and the privilege of being the first person to grab this mic in the room and be able to start off the Taking Back Our Power campaign. And I want to bring up to you somebody very important, somebody I love, somebody's my mentor, somebody who knows how to take some power. Whose power? Whose power? I want you to give a big round of applause for Key Whitaker.
I don't know how to follow that. Whose power? Whose power? All right, all right. Good evening, Michiganders. As Charles said, my name is Ken Whitaker. I'm Executive Director of Michigan United and Michigan People's Campaign. It is wonderful to see so many faces here tonight. We are united by a common purpose, and that is taking back our what? Power. Taking back our what? Power. Taking back our what? Power. Awesome. We're representing a very powerful coalition. We've got Clean Water Action in the room. Where you at? Detroit Action. Where you at? Emerging Justice. Moses Action. Michigan People's Campaign. I get to hear that twice. Where's Michigan United at? Community Change Action. Where you at? Michigan League of Conservation Voters. Where you at? And last but not least, I know you know who they are. Voters, not politicians. All right. Also want to give a special shout out to UAW Local 600. You hosted us. This has been our home for a number of years. Many of you have been in this room with us before. But it is the fight, the resilience, fighting for GM and Chrysler, or should I say Stellantis, still can't do it. I can't do it. Fighting for workers, fighting for a contract. And it is the inspiration that drives us here today. So I want to thank the UAW Local 600 for hosting us tonight. So tonight, we're joined by an all-star cast of elected officials and residents. We're going to hear powerful testimonies. We're going to talk about the pledges that we've signed. And then we're going to take action. So, tonight's speakers, we have Pastor Crayfish Walker. We have U.S. Representative Rashida Tlaib. We have U.S. Rep. Khanna from California. Dealing with Gala, State Rep. State Rep Abraham Ayash. State Rep Donovan McKinney. Detroit resident Brenda Butler. And Michigan United leader Jennifer Williams. So we're going to talk about why taking back our power is so important. For too many years, we've suffered power outages, we've lost medicine, we've lost food, we've lost breast milk. We've put up thousands of dollars to put our families in hotels all across Metro Detroit, all across the state of Michigan, all in the name of corporate profits. We've got monopoly corporations pouring millions of dollars into the legislature. The same legislature that is charged with looking out for your interests. The same legislature that then hands out contracts to these corporations. Millions of dollars for these corporations to get billions of dollars in profit. That ain't right, is it? That ain't right, is it? And today we're going to take back our what? Power! Take back our what? Power! So we're calling on the passing of comprehensive reform laws that forbid monopoly corporations and those wanting government contracts to pour this money into the state legislature. So that our state legislators can stand up proudly against these corporations and amplify your voice. The voice of each and every one of you. No matter if you're black, you're white, you're gay, you're straight. Doesn't matter what class you are, what city you're in. Your representatives, the representatives right up here today, want to stand with you and yell and shout and amplify your voice. Please give them a hand. So we're going to get a little bit of a late start, but we're also going to get a chance today to get to know each other. Because you do not bring people in a room like this and they don't get to say hi to each other. You don't get to understand the stories that links our lives together. Why do you want to take back your power? Who does it matter to you? Who's affected? Who did you have to help through 7 days of outages on your block? We want to hear those stories, and you're going to get a chance to share them with each other. And then we don't come together like this just to hear speakers. We take action. We're going to be emailing and texting our legislators. We're going to be texting our family members. 1, 2, 3, that cousin, that auntie, that uncle, the one that you really don't have political conversations with, but whose power goes out just like yours. We're going to be reaching out to them. But without further ado, I want to bring up our very first speaker, my Congresswoman, U.S. Representative Rashida Tlaib.
Thank you so much, Ken. I'm Ken's Congresswoman, I'd like to say. But thank you all so much for being here. You're here in the shadows of one of my most polluted neighborhoods in my district. So please honor the fact that you are right now among a community with a large population of children with high rates of asthma. I talked to a father who literally has to put his twin daughters on a breathing machine every night before they go to bed because the air is so dirty and they're impacted directly. So just please honor that as you sit here in this beautiful historic Union Hall The UAW Local 600 has always been in the front lines of transformative change. So thank you all so much for being here and for sharing space with all of us. I don't know about you all, but I am ready to put people over profits. And who's ready, really? I know all of you are ready to take back our power. I'm always reminded over and over again, and it's incredibly important, and I learned this from Grace Lee Boggs. And you know, growing up in the most beautiful, blackest city in the country, the city of Detroit, we are always reminded that transformative change doesn't come with who's in Congress, who's in these establishment organizations and institutions. It comes from the streets in. Because again, the President of the United States didn't wake up one day and say, you know what, the Civil Rights Act was a good idea. He didn't wake up one day, and I say he because it's always been he. He'd say, you know what, organizing unions and organizing labor is an important right in our country. No, it was because people went on strike, they put their bodies on the line, folks boycotted, they did sit-ins, they demanded our country to change and desegregate and talk about real civil rights, which we're still working on for our black neighbors around the country. And so just remember the power that you all have, and this is how you do it. This is how you do it. It's great to be here and feel the energy of this incredible movement. People are sick and tired, they really are, of greedy corporations buying off politicians and purchasing our government. Sometimes I feel like they should just put a Century 21 sign right in front of the, no offense, in front of the, no, really, in these institutions, because they're not listening to us. They're listening to the people making the donations. Even when some of us are fighting to say, here, we're here, we want to support you, but they still don't give us a chance. They're fed up. They're fed up with the rich and powerful being able to pay their way out, of being held accountable to all of us. I still remember my mom in the last blackout, and I'm now her Congresswoman, Sergio, you know my mother. Yeah, y'all know my mom. And so my Emma calls me, and she's Ayasha's buddy. Yeah, that's his bestie. But I kid you not, when I told her they only can give you, and at that time they increased it by they just did it like $35 instead of the $25. She's like, you better go fix that. She's like, all that food is gone. You better go fix that. Even my mother, at the time, even with all of our support, she just said it's just not right. It's not right to have us waste all that food and for them not to be held accountable. They see that their DTE bill going up every single year, y'all, while they suffer power outages that can last over a week. They're done paying the high rates for worse service, all because our laws allow companies like DTE to throw millions of dollars at the people who are supposed to work for us, not them. But I'll tell you what, companies like DTE and consumers pissed off the wrong people. Am I right? Yeah. They took advantage of the wrong communities. Am I right? Yeah. Because we're standing up and we're taking back our power. We got a real chance here, y'all, with these fantastic Michigan lawmakers behind us who are here tonight to pass transformative policies for our communities. I can't wait to hear about their work in Lansing to really take back our power, that we can fight again all together to support all of them and continue to make that transformative change. We have a rare opportunity and we need to seize it. Remember, y'all, these corporations and politicians who work for them aren't just going to give up their power. We have to literally work hard every single day to join together and take it from them. You ready to take it from them? Yeah. Again, I promise you this, the transformative change comes from the streets. I've seen it over and over again, from anti-war movements to trying to, again, protect our right to strike and right to organize labor. It's going to be this way, this kind of movement, that we're able to, again, take back our power. I'm tired of the calls from my seniors. I know many of us are. The tears, the fact that many of them feel so helpless when, again, they're paying their bills and, again, they have the most unreliable service, in one of the most unreliable services in the country. But I'm proud of all of you continue to take on this fight. They may create subsidiaries and do all kinds of things behind the scenes, but we're going to expose them. We're going to expose them every chance we get and show the people that they are not for us, the customers. They're for their shareholders. They're for their profits. And we're saying enough is enough. Thank you all so much for being here. God bless you.
We're here to do what? Take back our what? That's my congresswoman, y'all. Next up, we got Pastor Crayfish Walker from the Faith Redemption Center.
Thank you, sir. I might as well say that too. Take back our what? Power. Take back our what? Power. You have all been officially now indoctrinated into the Take Back Our Power Church. Give yourselves a hand. Now that you are a member, it's time to take action. Our stories are the same, so there's no use in me reiterating what the power outages do. I do represent several churches, about 50 of them that I communicate with on a monthly basis. All of us have the same story and the same concern. What puzzles me, though, is as an engineer and as a person that works in cybersecurity, how does it happen? And we're not being given an account of how the power outages continue to happen. The most recent one that I experienced the other day, the wind wasn't blowing, it wasn't snowing, it wasn't raining. The power was just out. But we need to know what's going on with our infrastructure that this keeps happening to us. So I just joined in tonight, not only just to be on stage with our Congresswoman, but also to encourage you to push and fight. So I must leave the church with a biblical story. There was a lady who was treated unjustly, and she went to the judge and said, "Judge, they're treating me unfairly. Will you help me out?" Of course, the judge turned her down and kept turning her down. But the lady kept coming back over and over and over again. And the Bible says about this judge who didn't fear God or man, it said because of her importunity or her continual coming to the table, pressing for her rights, the judge said, "I must grant her what she's asking for." So are you ready? We're going to do what? Take back what?
I'm on mic, baby. These stickers are good for something besides putting on your chest. There we go. So next up, we're going to have U.S. Rep. Khanna.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here with Representative Rashida Tlaib in her district. It's my second time because we worked on the environmental committee together. I was chairing it, she was vice chairing it, and no one in Congress, no one of the 435 members is a stronger voice for environmental justice than Rashida Tlaib. She got our committee out there and made us see the smoke that people and the asthma that people were facing because the polluting plants were less than 500 feet away from the residences, and I still remember that and had such a big impact. So thank you for having me. Thank you, Ken Whitaker, Michigan United. Thank you. What courage for so many state reps, including the #2 leader, Abe Ayash, to be here. I know he's not going to sell out. I know he's not. Look, I don't understand. I don't understand something. I don't understand how in this country we allow corporations to give money to politicians. That needs to be banned. That needs to be banned. And we moved backwards. When Barack Obama ran, he had a rule. The DNC doesn't take corporate money. Guess what? The DNC has now started to take corporate money. How are we moving backwards in this country? We should pass in every state a clear law. No corporate money to politicians. No PAC money to politicians. No super PAC money to politicians. That's what's going to start to change things. And I'll just say one other thing, because I heard the stories when I was last here about folks, not having power. It reminded me of when I used to visit my grandparents in India. I said, really? this is going on in the United States of America? Well, we've got the richest country, the richest, most wealth generation, Silicon Valley, my district, $10 trillion of wealth generation, and you're telling me we can't get people power at a reasonable cost? We can't get people health care at a reasonable cost? This economy isn't working for too many people, and it's because big corporations have bought off state legislators and the Congress. It's time to take the power back to people so that we can have a decent middle-class life so you can afford to live in America again. It's so corporations aren't running the place, but people are. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Khanna. Like Rep. Khanna said, we want Michigan to align with other states.
Yeah.
We have Connecticut, we've got Georgia, we've got Hawaii that have already passed legislation curbing contributions from corporations to elected officials. Do we want that in Michigan?
Yes!
How bad do we want that in Michigan?
Yes!
How bad? Yes! All right. So next up, we are going to have State Representative dealing with yellow.
How's everybody feeling? So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm new to this. I was a school teacher. My name's Dylan Miguel. I represent District 26, which is Garden City, Inkster, Romulus, and West. Before running for office, I taught here in Dearborn, at Dearborn High School. I was a teacher and union activist. And, I stepped up to run because, like many of you, I was tired of the status quo. I ran for office without taking a dime from corporate money, and I haven't since. I've been in office just over a year, and it is clear to me that corporate money is poisoning Lansing. It's clear.
Yes.
Today, though, is the start of a movement. It's a movement to disrupt the status quo. It's to disrupt the how things have always been mentality, to disrupt the system that has led to record corporate profits and wealth inequality in this country. It's a system that has left the working class behind. And let's talk about that word working class, because I think constantly we were trying to divide this country and say that there's a working class and there's a middle class. I don't believe in the middle class, and let me tell you what I mean by that. I believe that there are people who work for a living, and then there are people who don't and make money off of other people's labor. We live in a world where the wealthy thrive and the rest of us struggle. Why is it that 3 people have more wealth than the bottom half of the country? How is it that we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in Michigan's history, yet 40% of families can't afford to meet their basic needs? I mean, what good is a job if you can't pay your bills?
Come on, guys.
And why does it seem, and here's some real truth, why does it seem no matter which party is in charge, that nothing seems to change? Well, the fortunate thing is I think most of us in this room know the answer, and I'm going to go ahead and say the quiet part out loud. It's because we've allowed for-profit corporations to buy influence in government. And we've created an economic system that is designed on not putting people first, but putting profits first. Now let's talk about DTE. I'm not sure how many people paid attention to some of the news today, but my office and I and this coalition, we introduced some bills. Michiganders pay the highest energy rates in the region but have the worst reliability. And we introduced bills today that will significantly limit DTE's ability to influence Lansing. Because the reality is that right now, DTE is bold enough to brag at their shareholder meetings about their own malpractice. Last year in an earnings call, DTE executives explained their plans to cut back on hiring and reduce their contracted workforce and defer maintenance, all so that they would have what resulted in another successful year. So how do they keep getting away with this? It's because it is cheaper for them to spend money on influencing us in Lansing than it is for them to actually update the grid. That's not right. In fact, they only have to spend a few $1 million to get a return of investment that is in the billions. A few $1 million. And I'm committed to fighting against corporate influence in our government. But the truth is this, and Representative Tlaib talked about this, and I fundamentally believe this based on my own life experience. Real change is not going to come from Lansing. Real change is only going to come from the people in this room. And it's only going to come when the working class unites together and they fight together, and when they fight in a way that can't be ignored, but also that disrupts the status quo. Thank you.
You've heard it before. We are here to take back what? Taking back our what? All right, speaking of power, let's bring up the majority floor leader, State Rep Abraham Ayash.
All right, we're in Dearborn, so Assalamu alaikum. But I represent Detroit, so what up, though?
West side.
East side. East side's the B side. I don't want no turf wars, so we got to stay focused right now. I had a senior hall visit once, and I was talking to some of my seniors, and we were talking about DTE. We got a little angry. And one of the seniors said, "Representative, what does DTE even mean? What does it stand for?" And there was a smart mouth senior to my right that said, "It means don't trust our energy." And that stuck with me for the longest, because if you look at your experience with DTE, their motto should be, don't trust our energy. Because we have seen the statistics. Michigan has some of the highest rates in the country, the longest outages, and the most frequent outages than any of our Midwest counterparts. And when you talk to the DTE lobbyists, they'll tell you, "Representative, it's about the weather." And I said, how long ago did these lakes show up around our state? Because I thought the lake effect was something we figured out 1,000 years ago. We know when it gets cold and we know when it gets hot. What we can't seem to understand is why you haven't figured it out, despite showing decade after decade of profits. Now, Dylan told you that the loud part, or the quiet part that he said, is that they know it is a better investment to influence, that's the word we like to use, influence our elected officials. I gotta behave, I gotta have some decorum from my colleagues, so if y'all say it, that's on y'all. I can't go back to Lansing and get yelled at for saying that some folks are bought and sold. I didn't say it. I got a man of God that testified, I didn't say it. So, but I just want you guys to understand a couple things as we organize in the future. See, I believe in co-governing. We coordinate our inside game and our outside game, so we're moving in the same direction and pushing the same narrative and encouraging our elected officials to operate not from a framework of corruption and cowardice, but courage and conviction. Okay? And in order to do that, we have to be cognizant of the reality. Here are the facts. By law, the utilities are guaranteed a profit. Okay? You understand what I mean by that? That means there is no way there's a man of God, no way in heck somebody like a Consumers Energy or a DTE can be in the red. They will always be guaranteed a profit in the process that we have established through the MPSC. That is fact number one. Fact number two, anytime they go before the Public Service Commission and ask for a rate increase, There is no framework set up where if they say we need to increase people's bills by $5 a month, we can tell them use that $5 to fix the damn trees that you've been complaining about, or bury the lines that you said you can't afford to do. So they can ask for a rate increase and there is no accountability for what they do with that money. Fact number 2. Fact number 3. As Dylan mentioned, they spend so much money. Now I want to give you some numbers. One of the top 3 lobbying expenditures in the state of Michigan come from 3 entities. Anyone want to guess what they are? DTE is one of them. Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Consumers Energy. Those are the top 3 spenders in Lansing in terms of lobbying. You know, we just had a lobby report of how many legislators were wined and dined. The top company that wined and dined legislators was actually one of the utility companies, $50,000 by Consumers Energy in one single year. That means $50,000 was used to buy steaks and wines and French fries and mashed potatoes and greens, beans, potatoes, you name it, for our legislators. So, as you continue to organize, to fight, and take back our power, keep us in check. Continue to put pressure on your elected officials and ask them who is helping you write this legislation. See, we just finished, and I'll close at this point. I can talk for a long time in front of the microphone, but I'll close with this point. We just passed some pretty monumental climate legislation in Michigan, and I'm incredibly proud of what we were able to accomplish. But I want to be honest about some of the backdoor dealings that we had to negotiate with the utilities. At every point of the conversation, we were always asked, if the utilities are going to be opposed to this legislation, we cannot move it. No way in hell. Sorry. Remember what I just said. We were told if the utilities don't like this legislation, if they are opposed, we cannot get the votes to pass this legislation. They had to at least be neutral on the package of bills in order for them to move them across the finish line. And we worked hard to ensure that we had clawbacks, and we worked hard to make sure that we focused on environmental justice and affordability, and that ratepayers, particularly in black and brown communities, had some support in that process. But I don't want to pretend that the utilities were always the elephant in the room anytime we had a discussion on how we can make Michigan a cleaner, greener, more affordable place to live. So remember that as you continue to organize, and keep electing people like the guy I'm going to call up next. See, the guy I'm going to call up next, and I'm going to steal his story, and he's probably going to be mad at me, but I'm going to tell you anyway. See, he just had a baby. But the last time he had a baby, I got to tell you a story that's not so good. See, the first time Junior came out, Junior was born and then had to live through a DT outage. It's like a rite of passage for living in Detroit, unfortunately. And Junior and his mom, Shantae, had to spend a week in a hotel room so that Junior is not freezing in his first year of birth, or of life, because of DTE. I want you to think about, he had the blessing and the opportunity to be able to afford for a hotel room for a week. But how many seniors do we know shiver in the cold? And how many mothers do we know in the summer who worked hard to pump the breast milk only for it to spoil? And how many people do we know that work from home and don't have the electricity to make money to then use that money to pay the utilities? How many babies do we know that worked and went to school from home and could not go to school because they didn't have power? And how many parents had to take their kids to the work because they were going to freeze if they stayed at home? These are the stories you have to keep reminding us of, and you have to make sure you keep electing people like Donovan McKinney. Donovan, come on up, who can share his lived experience when we talk about legislation. So when we say we take back our power, it means we elect people who understand what it means to build that power because they've experienced what you've experienced. Ladies and gentlemen, my favorite colleague in the Michigan House of Representatives, the new father of Robert Ezekiel McKinney. Give it up for Donovan McKinney, everyone.
It's really thrilling to thank you, man. Okay, that was probably the best introduction I ever had in my life. But glad to be with you all. For those who don't know, I'm Donovan McKinney, state representative out of Michigan's 14th House District. That is Northeast Detroit, parts of Warren, all of Centerline. Glad to be with you all this evening. So he touched on a little bit of my story. I want to thank my wife before I begin because she's allowed me to be here at this present moment. She just gave birth to our little one on Valentine's Day. So, thank you. Our second baby boy was born 8 days ago. So I literally came home from Lansing, spent about an hour there changing diapers, trying to help my wife and leave my wife, and then came straight here because we know how important this conversation, this topic is. He touched on my story a little bit. Abe did around my first child. When we brought him home from the hospital, we flicked the lights on. There wasn't no lights. And so, it was cold. He was born on January 21st. And we were out of power for a whole week. And guess what? We applied to the NPSC to get a credit. Because guess what? You can get a credit after 4 days of consecutive power outages. And they just still